Hi peeps, so today I want to talk about practical card work to assist you in your shadow work on your own personal journey. For this, you're probably going to want a journal of some sort, and you're going to need 2 decks. If at all possible, you might want to have 3 for this process. So you're going to want 2 to 3 decks for this process, and you're only going to draw 3 cards tops. You also, in addition, don't need the tarot deck for this shadow work aspect, but you may like to bring it in, and I kind of always like to bring a little piece of tarot into what I do. So you're going to want to have a journal. You're going to want to have these decks, and what I want you to do is find one deck that you consider a shadow deck. So for this example, I have the Lantern Oracle because I found this to be a really effective shadow work deck. Another option would be the Le Vampire Oracle, Oracle of Shadows and Light. Alice in Wonderland Oracle is also a great shadow work oracle. The Dark Mirror Oracle is another wonderful option. Any oracle deck that really gets to the heart of the matter for you. And then you can have a tarot deck if you would like as well. Today I'm going to be using the Serpentfire Tarot. And then I want you to have an affirmational deck to finish the process, but I want it to be more than just a deck that only has affirmations. I'd like it to be a deck that has a little bit of meat in the guidebook for you. And you're going to be using the guidebooks for both of these decks. Guidebook is optional for the tarot deck. So what I'm going to be using to show you this process today is the Love Your Inner Goddess Oracle, the Sacred Rebels Oracle, the White Light Oracle is another great option. I'm trying to think of something that's not Blue Angel in case you want to go in a different direction than that. You could use the Soulful Woman deck. Oracle of the Mermaids is another good option there for you too. You want something that's going to be affirmational in nature, but that's also going to give you some meat to take away from the session. And you want to give yourself at least 30 minutes here, like 20 to 30 minutes. And I know that you might be thinking, well, that sounds like a lot, but I really want you to take your time with the imagery, take your time with the guidebook, and really journal out your feelings, okay? So I want you to have these options with you. And then I want you to walk into this shadow work session with an idea, with an issue, a core issue or a core pattern, or something that you want to look at and integrate within yourself. So I don't want you to come into this particular exercise like, oh, okay, whatever Spirit's going to show me is what Spirit's going to show me, because I want this to be a focused shadow work session for you. My intention with this tutorial video is that you can actually do this at home and really feel like you're making an impact for yourself in regards to your spiritual work here. So I want you to have an idea or a focus in your mind, okay? And just because I am myself, I like to set up my the areas that I'm working on. Like I like to do like a paragraph ahead of time, just like stating what it is that the core pattern that I'm looking at, and then I like to then go ahead and write down I don't want to show you all this because this is actually some work of my own, but then I'll actually write down the card number because I'm a numerology person, the title, and then key things that stick out for me in the guidebook, and then I will journal my thoughts and feelings, what's coming up for me as I'm looking at the card itself. So I'm going to walk you through this as if I was doing this myself, and hopefully that will help you to feel really clear about the steps that you want to take here. So we're going to start with the Lantern Oracle. Now, as I said, remember that I don't want you to rush through this process, so hopefully you've grounded yourself before you start the work. Maybe you sit in front of your altar or sacred space for a few minutes. Maybe you take a walk out in nature or you take a bath. I want you to do something that allows you to feel grounded before you jump into this. It's the most important thing with shadow work is that it's very important to be grounded when you start the process and not to rush yourself through the process, okay? So I want you to take a few moments and ground yourself, prepare your materials. You might want to clear your decks if that feels good for you too. That's another way to get grounded and really connected with your process. And then I want you to think about what it is that you want to integrate in regards to shadow work here. So let's say that we're dealing with a core repeating pattern in regards to negative self-talk. Let's use this example because I think this is something a lot of us and a lot of people who find my channel are trying to work through. So let's say that we're looking at why we keep tending to have this very harsh negative self-talk and how we can start to integrate and shift that, okay? So we're going to start with the Lantern Oracle here in this situation, but I want you to grab your Shadow Oracle. You don't need these specific decks. Please don't feel like you have to go out and purchase things to do this exercise. Use the correlating shadow deck in your own home, or if you have the Lantern Oracle and like it as I do and want to use it, you can use that here. And what we're going to identify with the Lantern Oracle is we want to look at why do I keep engaging in this negative self-talk, all right? So this is going to give us a clue. It's going to give us insight into why we keep repeating this pattern for ourselves, okay? So this is what I'm using as an example, this exercise. When you sit down to do this, if you feel called to, work with whatever pattern or shadow aspect it is that you are wanting to integrate here. So that is our intention. We're looking at why do I keep repeating this negative self-talk pattern for myself, okay? So I just always like to shuffle first. It's, it's what I do. It's my whole life. So we're going to shuffle. And we're only going to draw one card from this deck. I don't want you guys to be like, I'm going to draw 3 cards. No, we're just drawing one card, okay? So the card that we drew today is card number 28, moving forward. The first step is taken within our stillness. So I don't want you to rush through this process. So I want you to sit for a moment, looking at the imagery in this card, what it feels like, what comes up for you. Predominantly for me, the first thing I notice is turkey vulture or vulture showing up here in the desert. That's a totem for me, so I'm feeling that sense of vulture is sharing, that vulture is there with me. So pay attention to all these little details. Then we have the sun, which to me brings in the energy of Ra here. We have this illumination that's happening, and this sense of journeying through this wasteland, but still there's this illumination that we're heading to, right? And then our keywords are, the first step is taken within our stillness. So I'm just kind of seeing what sticks out to me. I'm also seeing like the footsteps from the path behind, and that I'm not seeing the front of the person, am I? I'm just seeing the back. So I'm taking a moment to just let the image sink in for me. And these things are all important, especially in regards to, outside of shadow work, building your intuitive muscle. But we're bringing this into shadow work today. So we're going to paying attention to that. And now we're going to go to the book. And we're going to read through the guidebook meaning. So in this situation, I'm going to read this guidebook meaning just to help you see how you would work with this energy, okay? So when we feel stuck, tired, or uninspired, we typically seek change, movement, or stimulation by adding something new to our lives. We may also be advised to do so by well-meaning individuals, the assumption being that an external alteration is the solution to our dissatisfaction. However, to only change the appearance of our lives typically eventuates in a new place, career path, partner, activity, or hobby, losing its novel appeal and ending as abruptly as it began. Like a caged rat within its spinning wheel, our restless search for something, somewhere, or someone different resumes. Oversight to the futility of superficial change potentially sends us on a wildly blind and even reckless search for things to change about our lives or who we seem to be. This is all motivated by the false belief that we are indeed improving ourselves and advancing. Rarely do we stop to ask the questions. Have I actually moved? Has anything really changed? Why, after the initial buzz of something new, do I feel the same inside? Instead of such self-inquiry, we chase after further means of escape in the multitude of distractions available to us. So I'm going to stop reading there because I think I've shown, you want to make sure you take your time, read through the guidebook meaning. There's still a few paragraphs left here, so I would sit with and let all of that information sink in. And then I might choose to journal some key points that really stick out to me from the guidebook itself. So what's really sticking out to me here is that part of why this pattern is perpetuating for me is because instead of looking within, I'm seeking a distraction outside to feel better. Instead of looking within, taking care of myself inwardly, honoring how I actually feel, and then taking concrete steps to start to shift the negative self-talk by choosing to engage and kind of reform those patterns in the mind, right? So, and predominantly another key piece here in this guidebook is that I need to be still and quiet and kind of sit with myself, my feelings, and look at the root of where that negative self-talk comes from instead of distracting myself with outside things. And then at the end of this, in this particular guidebook, there's a guardian's message. What we leave behind releases us forward. So there's some things from the past that I'm ready to look at, explore, then integrate and leave in the past, not in my present in regards to this negative self-talk. So what I would then do is journal out the things that stuck out to me from the guidebook, and then I would journal about like what's coming up for me. So in regards to sitting still and looking at things in the past, I might actually take 5 or 10 minutes and sit with that energy, journal about what comes up for me, and see where I can offer myself some compassion, some understanding, and some love in regards to that. After that, now here is the option, okay, because you have the optional, the tarot deck is optional here because, you naturally in the Lantern Oracle, you've been given some steps, and one of those steps was to get still and to sit still with how you actually feel, right? So that's one of those proactive steps you can take in regards to your shadow work. If you want to bring this forward a little bit more, if you want to go a little bit deeper, you can grab your tarot deck and ask for what practical step you can take next in regards to integrating the stillness or taking those steps in the direction, taking these steps in this direction of actually shifting the pattern. So what's the practical step that I can take? And in this case, I've drawn the Eight of Swords, giving me clarity into the fact that only I can set myself free. Only I can do this work. I can't expect someone or something outside of myself to shift these negative personal inward thought patterns towards myself. Only I can change the negative self-talk. And so now that we've drawn this card, we're going to draw the affirmational card, which is going to give us insight into how we can start speaking more kindly inwardly and start shifting that mental thought pattern. I think it's really interesting that both vulture and snake are present in these cards. Both of the snake and vulture are messengers between the realms of life and death, between the realms of this world and the next. And so there's also what I'm seeing here, just by looking at what's in the cards and paying attention to the symbolism, is that I'm very supported and guided by these messengers, by these energies that work with me, and that I can even call on the spirit animal of vulture and snake and journey with them to get further clarity on this issue, okay? So now we've found our practical step. I would encourage you here to then take a moment, journal about what comes up from the tarot card, how the two cards together are speaking to you about practical action in regards to shifting these negative patterns. This is the shadow work that we're doing. So we're looking at writing down those practical steps so we don't step back into regular life, real life after doing our session for ourselves and then kind of forget, to apply what we've come to understand about ourselves through this. So take the time to journal those practical steps. I'll often because I'm a list person too, I know it's like total Taurus, but I will often make a list of some practical steps in my journal that I can try to enact for myself over the next few days to remind myself to come back to them. So maybe it's like every time I have that thought of a personal thought, or whatever it would be for you, but like let's say I'm having a personal thought of how much I hate myself or how awful of a person I am. Every time I hear that, my practical step to set myself free could be to offer myself something beautiful or good or loving that I've done throughout the day that allows me to see, okay, so I'm not just, an awful person. There's good within me as well. And I would, and so those steps can help you come back to starting to shift that pattern. But once you finish journaling about the tarot card, now we're going to go into the affirmational deck. And this is going to help us, especially in this regard, give us the affirmations, kind words that we can use for ourselves to help us start to shift that pattern. And you will apply this affirmation to whatever area of shadow work that brought you to this exercise, okay? So it doesn't have to be what I said. It can be whatever you are working with in regards to your shadow work right now. So we're going to shuffle. And we're just setting an intention that we're drawing the card that's going to help us, that's going to give us the positive self-talk we can start engaging in, the affirmations that we can start working with, the energy of the sacred feminine that can help us have love and compassion and start to integrate these wounds, okay? So for today, the card that was drawn is number 39, Black Diamond. Now, of course, in this deck, I love this imagery, of course, naturally. But in this deck, there are often little affirmations strewn in the card. And this one is, true love is eternal. Okay? So remember, we're paying attention to what we're seeing in the card. So we definitely have the skull. We have the Day of the Dead reference. We have the reference to true love. And we have this black diamond energy, which makes me think, just from the coloring in the card, brings up for me that in the shadow is the beauty. And so in this wound is actually a beautiful gift and something worthy of loving within ourselves. So now, I've noticed those things. Now I'm going to go to my guidebook and I'm going to look up the card meaning. Now, just as I did with the Lantern Oracle, I'm not going to read the entire thing to you because both of these guidebooks do have a fair amount of meat to them. And it's something that is going to make this video go even longer if I keep, reading every single thing. But this is really a guideline for you. This is an exercise for you to come back to and to do this on your own. So when you do this, you can read the entire guidebook meaning for this. If you're working with an Alana Fairchild deck, the beautiful thing about the affirmational part of this reading is that you're going to get the guidebook meaning, spiritual guidance, and then you'll have an opportunity for sacred ritual or prayer at the end. And you may feel, if it resonates for you in regards to your card draw, that you'd like to bring the spiritual practice or sacred ritual aspect into the end of your session, which is why I said, you really want 20 or 30 minutes to sit with this, right? So you can take your time and engage in not only the shadow work aspect, but ritual to help, bring things into cohesion and bring things together as a whole for you. So in regards to the Black Diamond card, it says, you are one of the precious ones who is not destroyed by dark experiences in life, but is rather able to find wisdom and empowerment through overcoming them. You've done it before and you will do it again now. As your soul becomes powerful through the pressure she has survived, you'll be able to rise to even greater challenges, but they will feel easier for you than before. You are unstoppable. You have every right to feel bold and joyful about what life holds for you next. Your soul has been working with Black Diamond, transforming your attitude towards fear, learning how to feel it without being overcome by it. So to me, the affirmation that I would walk away from the guidebook with is that part of how I can shift into the positive self-talk, part of my mantra, if you will, my affirmation here in regards to, and I'm not using affirmation in the kind of cliche way. What I'm saying here is part of the words of wisdom that I can start working with as a practice to shift the negative self-talk is the understanding that what I have survived brings with it a brilliance and a beauty. And so instead of looking at that as what makes me unworthy, I can start to see that and to express towards myself in my quiet moments of stillness, this understanding that what I have experienced, actions I've taken or not taken, are part of what make me whole and beautiful as a person. Okay, so, and by offering myself the love and understanding and compassion instead of the harshness and the brutality of unkind words, I can start to shift that energy for myself. And so then I would go to my journal again, journal out everything that I want to perhaps remember from my guidebook and what's come up for me in regards to this affirmational part of the exercise. And then the last thing that I will do, and you can choose to engage in the sacred ritual or the prayer or however you want to bring in that ritual aspect of integrating these 3 cards for yourself. You know, maybe you light a candle on your altar, or you choose a specific stone to represent this practice that you'll keep in your pocket for the next few days. Whatever feels right for you. Then I like to look at the 2 or 3 cards as a whole. Paying attention to colors I see repeating, symbols that have shown up that mean a lot to me. And those are things that I can use as touchstones to come back to when I feel lost in regards to this aspect of my shadow self. So I will often just journal a few things, like perhaps that the red really stuck out to me, this circular aspect of the void and the sun we saw repeating, the words of true love, and the stillness, the gift of sitting with myself, as well as the animal guides that I saw present here too. So that is an example of an exercise that I use in my own practice, and that I hope if you choose to try out, you'll find helpful in your own shadow work practice as well. The beauty of this is that while I am encouraging 20 to 30 minutes to sit with this exercise, outside of your decks, it's not a card-heavy situation, so you're not trying to interpret a card spread for yourself as well as understand this core pattern that you keep repeating. And it gives you time to really journal it out, to really work your process for yourself. Now, in addition to this, if you have the time over the next few days, you could choose to journey with any of the spirit animals or energies that you feel have shown up to assist you in this practice, and allow them to give you a further settling in and impactfulness to the exercise itself, so that you can really work with the integration piece of shadow work and have that actually make a difference for you on your path, where it's not just theory, but there's practical application as well. So I hope that you find this practice helpful. If you feel called to try it out, let me know how it goes for you. And like I said, these are the recommended decks, the Lantern Oracle and the Love Your Inner Goddess Oracle. But please use any oracle decks that you have at home, or even tarot decks that feel right for you to do this practice. You don't have to go out and buy these decks. I just want to reaffirm that for you. So, as always, I'm sending you much love and many blessings. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.